Gentlemen, what are your rational fears?
Irrational. Yes?
I keep saying rational
You
or
keep saying rational.
irrational fears.
You need to enunciate.
You know what? What is your irrational fear, Charlie?
Irrational fears. Do I have any irrational fears? Most of my fears are pretty rational. I don't like heights. I don't like falling. I don't like falling from heights. It's a thing.
Heights where I fall from, I don't like.
Exactly. You know what? Maybe this would count as an irrational fear. I am afraid of potential government overreach to the point of instilling a World War II occupation level martial law. Because, there's in Chicago, there's always a shooting every couple of minutes. So I'm afraid of waking up one morning and hearing the news. The government is tired of this happening, and there's no other way to secure it other than martial law. And so they institute a citywide curfew with military personnel on every corner, monitoring everything. You can't go anywhere unless you check in with them or something. The fear of war and occupation from either our country or foreign countries is definitely a fear. That freaks me out.
One of that I have are dolls.
See, that's irrational.
That's irrational. I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
That is irrational.
Irrational. Dolls are irrational?
Dolls are irrational. They're in.
I'm not talking about Barbies, dude. I'm talking about rag dolls that have
Annabelle.
been through 100 years.
Once
Why?
again, that is irrational.
You shut
Wait,
your
wait,
mouth.
wait. See, that's the first thing. See, that proves you're crazy. You shouldn't be afraid. You said dolls that have lived for 100 years.
I'm saying I've been
Dolls
Dolls
preserved
have
for
not
100.
lived anything.
I'm
You
sorry.
thinking
I
they're
used the
alive.
wrong word. I'm saying I used the wrong word. I lived, been preserved for 100 years. And family heirlooms been passed down from generation to generation.
Now, I will say this, though. Those porcelain dolls do look freaky.
That's what
but
I meant.
They look freaky, but that doesn't mean I'm scared of them. They just look weird.
I'm sorry, man. I can't have something like that in my house. Like I'd rather burn the whole place down than to live with that thing. I can. The Annabelle doll, which actually originally was a rag doll, whether you believe in demonic possession or not, that's up to you. But it's a very scary thought or some evil spirit to get into an inanimate object. I think it was Annabelle, some other doll, but there was a couple of dolls that were mentioned on the videos that Rob Dyke was talking about. And this doll, it looked very innocent, but it did very odd things. It belonged to a boy, and I think the young man died, if I'm not mistaken, or he didn't. But I'm not too sure what happened. But the point of being is there were people who said they saw that doll that did this. Witnesses said that they saw the doll by the window. And then they turn around, mind their own business, look back again, the doll was gone. They were hearing voices in the hallways, the sounds of footsteps across the floor when there was no one in the house. And they freaked out. They couldn't stand it. They couldn't stand being there in that house with that thing. And so they passed it on. I don't know what happened to the doll, but I think the Annabelle doll itself is in a glass case and in a museum somewhere. And even the strangest things occur when people try to take a picture of it. The cameras don't work. Phones don't work. What was yours, Jeremy?
What was it?
Yeah. You said it was in relation to heights?
No, not really. I have a fear of losing control. That's what I have. So that's why I don't like roller coasters. So I have a problem with that. Like big faces and stuff is worse.
Big faces, paintings.
Yeah, because I was at the Denver Art Museum, and they had this whole. I guess this artist, that's what he did. He paint these huge paintings of people, and it was weird because they look like people, but they were
not.
just too big. And a lot of times you have that. Paintings are, make a big painting of people. There was I can't put my finger.
Oh,
on
wait. You
I know,
told
I'm
us
messing with you.
you had an incident at one of the museums you've been into. It was
Oh, well,
African
yeah.
art, and you felt.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us what this was about? I was a little bit spooked because you were alone. I mean,
Well, it's the same museum, the Denver Museum, but this is a different exhibit. But I remember my mom telling me a long time ago that she had a bunch of artifacts in the 60s when it was kind of becoming popular for blacks to sort of reach back to their roots and try to appreciate African culture and stuff like that. And she had bought some stuff. She said And she heard on the radio that sometimes these items, and it may be items may be just something like a vase or a pot, but they've been dedicated to some kind of god, and that there are spirits that attach themselves to these things. So anyway, I never had this problem before in museums, but I was just walking through, and so I got to the African art section of the museum, and there was nobody else in there. I was the only person in that section of the museum, and I walked into that place, and there was such a sense of dread and the sense that there was something else in that gallery with me. And it was so bad that I had to leave. I had to walk out of that place. And I have a cousin who's into that stuff, African ancestral worship. So when I hooked up with him on Facebook, and he started to try to tell me about it, and I started to push back and say, no, this is not right, and this is not true. And he would be telling me, well, I speak to our grandmother sometimes. I'm like, no, I guarantee you that that's not who you're talking to. She's at home with the Lord that you don't even believe in, and you're not talking to her. You're talking to something else. Same thing with your mother. You're not talking to her. After we had that conversation about him talking to our grandmother, I'm asleep in bed one night, and something hit me on the side. Something touched me with their hand and woke me up. Of course, there's nothing else in the room with me. It was right after I had that conversation with him, I said, this is these beings trying to keep hold of him.
See, here's the core of it, is all of us, every single one of us, whether you believe it or not, whether you like it or not, are all spiritual beings. We all have a physical, on this world, presence that we all possess, but we also all have a soul. We also have a spirit, okay? And that spirit, because there is a spiritual realm, a world that functions in tandem with our own, that can affect our physical world, and does often affect our physical world. We are aware of this world and the things that happen in this world. When demons from this world come in and they talk and they impersonate people that we know, they get in by showing you something familiar and then breach the walls of your consciousness that way. I've seen it.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to have a hard time believing this from the two of you.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is, until you experience it yourself, you're not going to. But I can guarantee you that almost everyone who is listening to this, who is honest enough with themselves and is going to admit that they've had a spiritual encounter, knows what we're saying is the truth.